Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up in our news tonight. Political parties out in full force just days ahead of the general election. An F&M MP says he's not going after party leadership. COVID concerns are high as thousands prepare to head to the polls. And the COVID-19 pandemic continues to impact healthcare services. Welcome to our News Weekend and thanks for joining us. I'm Georgie Bain. It's Saturday, September 11th. Let's take a look at what's topping news tonight. Well, one day after thousands of voters cast their ballot in the advance polls, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis told Free National Movement supporters that he has been assured that the F&M won the advance poll. Minnis made stops to Cat Island and San Salvador as the party held a drive-through rally on both islands last evening.
I've been reliably informed that in the advance poll, the F&M has taken the advance polls.
The Prime Minister expressing confidence that the F&M won the advance poll. However, ballots cast during early elections won't be counted until after polls close on election day. The advance poll got off to a chaotic start with reports of confusion and no social distancing. Tensions also ran high in Pinewood Gardens after some candidates raised concerns about unsealed ballot boxes. During a stop in Cat Island last evening, Minnis told residents that his party needs their help to maintain the lead gained in the advance poll. He urged Cat Islanders not to fall for the Progressive Liberal Party's promises.
Brave has been a poor MP for you. He is tired. When he had power as the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Works, he could have done much for you, yet he did little.
This as he listed his party's plans, which included a boost to the agricultural industry on Cat Island, the expansion of solar fields for reliable electricity, and island accessibility.
How in good conscience Brave Davis failed to provide you with good potable water right to your homes or businesses for decades. Brave is all over. He's all over promising you what he says he would do for you. He likes to show pretty pictures of his plans. They are only pictures and things in his imagination.
The Prime Minister also promising to rebuild the island's airports. According to Minnis, a Canadian firm is leading the request for proposal processes.
Cat Island, the Department of Aviation is right now finalizing a contract for a request for proposal to totally rebuild the New Bight Airport. That the request for proposal will include an invitation for bidders to express an interest in the total rebuild of the Arthur's Town Airport.
5 days before voters head to the polls, several political parties held major motorcades on New Providence and Grand Bahama this afternoon in the final stretch of their election campaign. The Free National Movement held an island-wide monstercade to drum up excitement among party supporters and undecided voters on the final weekend before September 16th, the general election. A gold wave also swept the island as the Progressive Liberal Party led cars of supporters on its second motorcade on New Providence. Not to be outdone, the Democratic National Alliance appealed to voters to go green as the party took its message of change to the streets, starting at the Golden Gates grounds. And also hitting the streets today was the Coalition of Independence, which covered New Providence in black before ending this afternoon with a drive-in rally. Well, days away from the general election, Free National Movement candidate for Elizabeth, Dr. Dwayne Sands, is shooting down claims that he is making a bid for party leadership. His comments come a week after former F&M leader and Prime Minister Hubert Ingram endorsed Dr. Sands in his constituency. At the time, former Prime Minister Ingram said that he hopes that the F&M incumbent wins his seat and possibly goes on to become Prime Minister.
I can't get into people's heads. I was pleased to have the support and the endorsement of a giant in the body politic of the Bahamas. Nobody can deny that Hubert Ingram has done a tremendous amount for the Bahamas. And so I was very pleased to have his endorsement. He made it very clear that was the purpose of that visit, and only that purpose. And I think any other discussion is idle speculation.
When asked the state of his relationship with the current leader, the former health minister said this.
I'm a member of the Free National Movement. I'm a part of a team, and we have one leader, and that's Dr. Hubert Minnis.
With thousands of people lining up at the advance poll, concerns over COVID-19 remained at the front of the mind of some. The Bahamas is not the first country to conduct elections during the pandemic, but are local elections being conducted in a safe as possible manner? Our Christina Dragovich tells us more.
We're going to have a super spread. Let's just be real. Any doctor who comes out here right now will maybe close that place down. The planning, the outline, the logistic is not conducive to what I see this morning.
Democratic National Alliance Deputy Leader Stephen Nesbitt watched scores of elderly voters line up to vote at Sadie Curtis Primary School Thursday morning. Lines were long, leaving little space between voters, and that was only on the outside. Nassau Village Independent candidate Halson Moultrie says he saw several red flags in the polling areas.
I noticed that everybody is submerging their thumb in the ink, and there's no sanitizing process with that respect. So it's possible for the ink to get contaminated.
Moultrie says attempts were made to sanitize pencils used for voting, but he's not sure that's sufficient in the midst of a COVID-19 surge.
I see they're spraying those pencils with Lysol spray. I don't know if that is effective or sufficient, but at least they're attempting to do something. They're asking people to lower their masks so that they can identify them properly, and they would have given them the pen already or the pencil already. Then they have to lower their mask and put it back up after they've sanitized and after they receive the pencil.
So how do you conduct safe elections in the midst of a pandemic? Suriname held general elections on May 25, 2020. According to the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, instead of using a shared ink pot for voters, poll workers dabbed ink on voters' fingers with cotton. As for quarantined voters, they were allowed to vote at a separate polling station. New Zealand held general elections on October 17, 2020. An electoral commission was established to ensure all 2.8 million voters were safe, and more voting centers were established to allow for more physical distancing. An IFES report says voters in quarantine were able to vote by a telephone dictation service. Here, Moultrie says returning officers were left to use their discretion when it came to quarantined or COVID-positive voters.
No one seems to know how they're going to be treating the quarantined persons. I asked the presiding officer. The presiding officer indicated that she's not permitting anyone, but she has not received any instructions.
49% of respondents are concerned about getting COVID-19 if they vote in person. This is according to Rev Media's survey, Voice of the Bahamas. Here's the breakdown.
Were you concerned about COVID when you were in there? I noticed that some of the people are lined up pretty close together.
Most of them are lined up very close together, and it is a concern.
As thousands of Bahamians head to the polls during a pandemic, COVID-19 is a major concern for many voters. It's a topic that was explored in Rev Media poll, Voice of the Bahamas. 22% of respondents said that they were very concerned about getting COVID-19 during voting, while 27% said that they were somewhat concerned. Meanwhile, 33% of respondents said they were not concerned at all, and 10% said that they were somewhat not concerned. Asked whether the possibility of getting COVID-19 while voting in person would prevent them from going to the polls, 45% of respondents said that it definitely won't. 25% said that it most likely won't. 13% said that it might prevent them from voting, and 6% said it definitely will prevent them from casting their ballots. Our News met Ronald Thompson moments after he marked his X in the advance polls. He said he wished there was more options.
Online voting would have been better. But other than that, this is fine.
The poll also explored respondents' likelihood to vote if there were other options like voting by mail, dropping their ballots off in a drop box, early voting, no contact in-person voting, and digital online voting. The majority of respondents appeared to be in favor of early voting, no contact in-person voting, and digital online voting, with 62% of respondents saying the chances of selecting one of those options was very likely. We asked former St. Anne's MP Brent Simonette and PLP candidate for St. Anne's Chris Saunders what they thought about making more options available for voters in the future.
We've just changed the election laws so you don't have to have your card every year, so that's a step forward. I think today it's now allowing people like myself, 65 and older, to vote, which is another positive. So under the Ingram administration, we allowed overseas voting and absence. So it's progressive. I think, yes, when we get further down and we digitize, we should be able to do far more.
I think that we need to take a serious look at voting reform. Are we ready yet for a complete online mail-in ballot, drive-up ballot? I'm not sure if we're there yet, but I think that we need to definitely explore the way to get there.
The survey was conducted by London-based independent market research firm F. and Tilmas and used weighing factors to derive the results of their survey based on population by geography. According to F. and Tilmas, the survey has a 99% confidence interval and a margin of error of plus or minus 4%. Well, healthcare workers are still being stretched to capacity as some of the challenges experienced during the first and second wave have not relented. CEO of Doctors Hospital, Dr. Charles Digges, says they're starting to bring on some normal services again, but they're still beyond capacity. Our Jillian Gray has that.
Doctors Hospital is having significant space challenges as more COVID patients get admitted to the hospital.
When our total patient count gets to 71, like this morning, not COVID patients, but the total patients in the health system, and we have 60 spaces in which we would normally put patients, and you can imagine that the extra 11 have to be accommodated somewhere. And so, our obligation clearly is to house patients who need to be hospitalized. But as that number increases, then where we house them becomes less and less ideal.
This week, the country hit a new bleak milestone with the highest number of hospitalized cases since the start of the pandemic. Dr. Digges says they are getting back to normal despite being beyond capacity.
Fortunately, the non-COVID problems we are able to address. We've reopened the operating theater for elective cases, even though we're taking them on slowly. So in terms of our ability to do or work, normally we're getting back to that, even though, like I said, we continue to juggle.
The increased demand for care coupled with staff shortages due to COVID-19 has left those who remain exhausted.
The staff who remain in the workspace, they continue to have to bear the burden of care to, like I indicated earlier, this is more severe disease. The demands for care, the amount of oxygen that we have to give to patients, all this is very ramped up right now. So we're dealing with more severe disease, more patients who are leaning towards going on a ventilator. And so the demands on the healthcare team, especially nurses, respiratory therapists, etc., those are accentuated.
Dr. Digges says when this is over, health professionals should take note of the lessons learned, like possibly stockpiling resources as the response from neighboring countries may not be what it needs to be. And as this is not likely to be the last time that the world experiences a health crisis, Dr. Digges is advocating for increased manpower.
It would be very helpful to know that in 2 or 3 years, you can become a part of a very positive wave, which is a wave of a brand new set of Bahamian professionals entering the employment and job market space. Lots of opportunities available in healthcare, and these are not the typical, doctor, nurse, etc., but so many different opportunities to participate in care. And I would encourage the young people who, themselves will be trying to survive this pandemic and this Bahamian experience to look very closely at the fact that this maybe is a big message for me to get involved.
Reporting for Our News Weekend, I'm Jillian Gray.
Well, still to come, the pandemic's impact on cancer patients and how attorneys are helping to fight climate change. The details when Our News Weekend returns.
The great True True Bahamian Treasure Hunt is here, where you can win great vacation prize packages to hotels throughout the Bahamas. Watch Our TV on weeknights between 6 and 11 p.m. for your 10 True True Bahamian clues. Take note of your answers and clues. You never know, you might see the same clue twice. Follow Our TV Originals on Facebook to submit your correct answers before 11 a.m. every Saturday. Watch Our News Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. to see if you are the weekly winner. If you didn't win, watch for clues next week because the contest runs all summer long. Go to Our TV Originals Facebook page for more information and contest details.
You're watching Our News Weekend. Welcome back. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a major impact on the entire world, and no one knows that better than those who head the Cancer Society of the Bahamas. President of the Cancer Society of the Bahamas, Dr. Williamson Shea, says people who need diagnosis and treatment have been staying home and not seeking medical attention. Our Jasmine Brown reports.
For more than 40 years, the Cancer Society of the Bahamas has helped thousands of cancer patients and their families cope. It has always been a task that has required a lot of determination, innovation, and funding. But Cancer Society President Dr. Williamson Shea says the last few years have been tough, thanks to Hurricane Dorian and now the COVID-19 pandemic.
Unfortunately, cancer does not know that these are happening. Cancer continues to flourish in our community, and we continue to try and help battle the cancer.
Dr. Shea adds that cancer patients have also been having a particularly tough time.
I would say if you ask a patient personally, they would say it's been difficult. One, because the hospital situations, the testing isn't as reliable, isn't as quick as you would like it to. Treatment itself is a bit delayed. The COVID testing to get to and from the province to the family islands has been a bit costly. So in essence, the COVID pandemic has made things a bit more difficult.
While it has been difficult, he says they have had to ensure it's not impossible, but he admitted some people are not getting their much-needed checkups.
We still have to see patients. We still have to try and get them through their investigations and through their treatment plans to get a result. And hopefully the results can be good. But I must say, being a physician, we also have seen a lot of delays in treatment. People have been staying home and not seeking out medical attention, and their disease has progressed. So we encourage people to still try and see the physicians when necessary. And if you need help in terms of cancer and trying to getting appointments, by all means, we can try and facilitate that as well.
The nonprofit organization was established in 1976. Its goal is to serve the public through educational programs aimed at bringing awareness to early detection, prevention, and treatment of cancer, while providing temporary accommodations as well as social and emotional needs for cancer patients. In addition to its headquarters on East Terrace, Centerville, the Cancer Society also runs 13 branches throughout the Bahamas.
We also have a financial assistance program that we help people who are in dire need of funds to help pay for the cost of investigations or treatments. So we have a lot of these programs to assist people who may or may not have cancer and promote screening and healthy living in the community. You're rightly so, because of these pandemics and natural disasters, funding hasn't been as good as in the past. But we still thank Corporate Bahamas. Some have been contributing, and we thank them very much for that, and they hope we can get continued support from that.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, climate change is a top concern for small island nations in the region, including the Bahamas. With active hurricane seasons and increased frequency of powerful storms, President of the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, Brian Spears, said attorneys can help in the fight.
Small islands, not just the Caribbean, but also in the South Pacific. I took part in a discussion with colleagues in Vanuatu and Tuvalu in the South Pacific, and they are existentially affected by climate change. And the Bahamas and other Caribbean islands are in that category as well. So we have a major global conference in Glasgow coming up later this year. And there is a role for lawyers to keep corporations and governments to their promises and to hold them accountable.
Spears says the topic was one of the primary matters discussed during the Commonwealth Law Conference this week. He says climate rights should be considered as human rights.
That's a really interesting topic, as our environment, as heat waves, as the melting of the Arctic, as weather events take place, those impact on crops and on the livelihoods of countless millions of people, and we feel climate rights are really important to showcase. But also justice needs to be sustainable in terms of being affordable, not delayed, and with an uncorruptible judiciary giving sound law-based judgments.
Well, when our News Weekend comes back, it's expected to be an interesting race on Grand Bahama. We'll tell you the details when our News Weekend returns.
The Great True True Bahamian Treasure Hunt is here, where you can win great vacation prize packages to hotels throughout the Bahamas. Watch our TV on weeknights between 6 and 11 p.m. for your 10 True True Bahamian clues. Take note of your answers and clues. You never know, you might see the same clue twice. Follow our TV originals on Facebook to submit your correct answers before 11 a.m. every Saturday. Watch our news Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. to see if you are the weekly winner. If you didn't win, watch for clues next week because the contest runs all summer long. Go to our TV originals Facebook page for more information and contest details.
You're watching our News Weekend. Welcome back. When Grand Bahamians head to the polls on Thursday, they will be voting on how they feel the government handled the pandemic and Hurricane Dorian. That's according to incumbent candidate for Pine Ridge, Frederick Macalpine. 2 years since the storm took lives and destroyed livelihoods on that island, Macalpine says that there are many Grand Bahamians who feel that the government just didn't do enough.
And it's not so much that they did not do. People are going to be voting not so much on the fact that they had responded. That too is a concern, they respond. But it's basically the management of the pandemic and the management of Dorian. And then even when you did, it's how you made us as individuals feel for you doing to us who are taxpayers. You gotta remember, politicians are paid by taxpayers' money. So when we turn around and do something for the people, it's their money. The money can't be good enough for politicians, but bad for the people.
A Rev Media poll showed that the government's handling of the pandemic and Hurricane Dorian are the top concerns for voters across the country. With the general election less than a week away, Macalpine says that it's going to be a tough fight, but he thinks that the general election night will be a very interesting one.
It's going to be very interesting. Again, it's going to be very, very interesting. This race is going to be very interesting in terms of the whole landscape nationally. I don't know who were the advisors to the Prime Minister that caused him to call a snap election in this pandemic, but I'm not sure it's going to work for him, as it seems to be working more against him as a party and as an organization.
Well, a former party leader weighs in on the party's future. That's coming up when our News Weekend returns.
The Great True True Bahamian Treasure Hunt is here, where you can win great vacation prize packages to hotels throughout the Bahamas. Watch our TV on weeknights between 6 and 11 p.m. for your 10 True True Bahamian clues. Take note of your answers and clues. You never know, you might see the same clue twice. Follow our TV originals on Facebook to submit your correct answers before 11 a.m. every Saturday. Watch our news Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. to see if you are the weekly winner. If you didn't win, watch for clues next week because the contest runs all summer long. Go to our TV originals Facebook page for more information and contest details.
Former Democratic National Alliance leader Branford McCartney doesn't think the party he founded has been taken over in relevance by the Coalition of Independence.
You know, you have a new kid on the block, so to speak, in terms of the coalition. And that in itself draws the attention of the media, of citizens as well.
When asked if he was impressed at what the DNA has done, McCartney says that it's a difficult time for the DNA due to the pandemic.
I go back to these unprecedented times, and certainly running a party, any party, I'm sure any leader of any party would tell you this, is very, very difficult. Financially, perhaps even getting persons to participate in the electoral process, simply because of where we are in our country economically. So, you know, I think the DNA is doing what they have to do with what they have to do it with.
McCartney began his political career when he was elected as a member of parliament for Bamboo-Town in 2007. He left the FNM in 2010 and was elected as the leader of the DNA in 2011. That's where he remained until retiring from politics in 2017. McCartney says that he's still in political retirement for now.
No, I'm not involved. I stepped down as the leader several years ago, and I've been taking very much of a back seat. And just watching from the sidelines.
Well, the constituency of Marcos City has bounced between the PLP and the FNM for the past 20 years. Incumbent Michael Pintard is hoping to change that by being re-elected and keeping the seat with the Free National Movement. He says despite the snap election, work already continues to stay underway and the completion of his constituency will continue.
No, we'll just continue to do what we've been doing, working on the community projects that we have going on, 3 parks, multiple roads that we're working on, a technology hub that's under construction, and the variety of matters that have been brought to our attention, we'll be addressing those. In addition, we will be asking persons for support.
Well, the R News team would like to congratulate this week's winner of the True Bahamian Treasure Hunt. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our News Weekend. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Georgie O'Bain, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.